All right. Good evening, commissioners, and over to you, Chair Harrington.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 Washington County Board of Commissioners business meeting. This is our last business meeting for this calendar year. Clerk Moss, could you do us the honors, please?
Certainly, Chair Harrington. Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services in all county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, December 12th, 2023. Commissioner Fye?
Present.
Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Commissioner Willie?
Here.
Vice Chair Rogers?
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here. All righty. We don't have any changes to tonight's agenda to announce. So before we move to public comment, I just want to remind folks that if you're here to provide testimony with regard to Ordinance B, Engrossed Ordinance 882, we will have a public hearing for that. So please don't testify during public comment, or we won't be able to include your comments in the record for that ordinance. So just so you know. So next we'll move to public communication. This is an opportunity for any member of our community to come and speak to us for up to 2 minutes for a total of 10 minutes. Clerk Moss.
Certainly, Madam Chair. We have Mr. Dale Feek. Dale?
Mr. Feek, I hope Santa Claus brings you a ream of paper.
I hope it brings me some money. Copy all that stuff. Madam Chair and Commissioners. I changed the way I do that because I read a little bit about parliamentary procedure. So Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Dale Feek, Chair of the Washington County Citizen Action Network. What you have before you and what I sent you an email, I hope you'll read the attachments to the email, is the 75th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And they had a segment about climate change, the youth lawsuits, the federal, state lawsuits, and also they're suing the EPA. So I'm asking, please read the transcript. I had it transcribed. That cost me a few bucks too. But anyway, you have a transcript of that presentation related to climate change. The Paris Agreement set a goal of 2 degrees, but hoped for 1.5 degrees of temperature rise. 1.5 is already unsafe for human health. So those agreements aren't going to make any difference. And that's where science and politics have not converged very well. They need to converge, and you're a politician, so help us out here. After you, Commissioner Roy Rogers, in your comments on December 5th Board of Commissioners business meeting, you said that you are concerned about your grandparents' future. And your support, Commissioner Pam Treese of the Washington County Youth for Acting Youth About Climate Change, because you're interested in that. And your Commissioner, Nafisa Fye, having 2 of the 21 youth suing the federal government over climate change in your district who live in Beaverton. It seems all of you who would want to become informed, you want to become informed about climate change as a human rights issue and learn how to donate to our children's trust and support of their work. My wife and I have donated, and I encourage you to do the same. And I give you the link there how to do that. Please take a look at the Genesis Youth. Genesis is one of the youth that is suing the EPA and other people. So please take a look at that, become informed, and take action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Feek. Next, we have Rich Vial. Rich?
Good evening, Chair Harrington, members of the board. I'm here in my capacity as the Public Affairs Director for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Portland metro area. And my purpose is to invite you to attend the grand opening or the grand launch of what's called the Giving Machine, which will be taking place at 9 a.m. on the 19th, next Tuesday morning, at Washington Square. The Giving Machine is a program that is being conducted in approximately 30 countries around the world. We are fortunate to have one here in Oregon. It is an opportunity for folks to step up, put their credit card in or their cash in, and buy a goat for someone in Africa or a meal for someone here in the Portland metro area. We expect Treasurer Tobias Reed to be our keynote speaker at that event, and we'd like to invite all of you to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other members in the auditorium that didn't get a chance to sign up that wants to provide a comment on any other county-related item? Give you just a moment to raise hand, come forward, get my attention. Not seeing anyone else in the room. Would any member online via Zoom wish to provide public comment on any county-related business? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any additional hands, Chair Harrington.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 14 items. One set of minutes, 3 items from Clean Water Services, 1 item from Emergency Management, 3 items from Facilities, Fleet, and Parks, 3 items from Housing Services, 1 item from Health and Human Services, and 2 items from Land Use and Transportation. I almost got that wrong. What are the wishes of the commission regarding tonight's consent agenda?
Move to accept. Second.
All those in favor of adopting tonight's consent agenda, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to boards and commissions. Tonight, we have a request. The Public Safety Coordinating Council requests that the board appoint the following persons for the respective positions for terms beginning January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. They are to reappoint Jenny Gilmore Robinson to the statutory required representative of a victim serving agency and to reappoint Melissa Laird to a lay community member and to appoint Deanna Palm to a lay community member position. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to this appointment?
So moved.
Second. Royce.
Thank you, Commissioner Fye and Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next, we're going to move on to public hearings. First, I need a motion to read Be Engrossed Ordinance 882 by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of reading this ordinance by title only? Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Mr. Anderson.
Be engrossed ordinance number 882, an ordinance amending the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to an extension of Tile Flat Road.
All right, we're going to have a staff presentation. Then after that, I will open a public hearing and people will be able to testify, both those of you here in the room as well as anyone online who raises their hand appropriately. Then I'll close the public hearing and then we'll have board discussion. So, welcome staff.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Land Use and Transportation Director Stephen Roberts, and with me is Aaron Wardell, our Planning and Development Services Manager. Aaron's going to walk through a fairly brief staff report. This is the same presentation that essentially you'll have received last week. We wanted to make sure to cover the same materials in case there were any audience members tuning in or in person tonight that weren't able to attend last week. And then with that, we'll be happy to answer questions and then head into the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We're starting with a slide that covers the history of this ordinance. As your board is aware, it's been about 2 years since this ordinance began its hearing process, and so a number of different hearings have been held. The ordinance has been engrossed twice. The first engrossment was to include additional technical material responding to case law. The second engrossment was to put in refinement areas rather than an exceptions corridor and specific roadway alignments. So that's where we're at now. The first hearing on the second engrossment was last week on December 5th. This is your second required public hearing on the engrossment and potential adoption. The history of this ordinance goes back several years. The area has been primarily brought into the urban growth boundary earlier this year. The City of Tigard is planning for 3,000 to 4,500 homes plus commercial uses within this 500-acre urban growth boundary expansion area. Tigard's comprehensive planning process, which they're kicking off now, will include the creation of detailed implementation and funding plans for necessary infrastructure to bring this area online and build those homes. The planning conducted for this area is expected to be consistent with the Tigard Urban Planning Area Agreement, which was adopted by both the city and the county in 2021. The background for the concept of the Tile Flat Road extension and the need for additional connectivity in this area goes back several years. It was initially identified on a map through the Cooper Mountain planning process conducted by the city of Beaverton in coordination with the county. It was further analyzed in the Cooper Mountain Transportation Study and in the Urban Reserves Transportation Study, which were both led by the county, again in partnership with our cities. These prior studies recommended inclusion of this into the county's transportation system plan. Again, it's included by reference within our urban planning area agreement with the City of Tigard, which your board adopted with ordinance number 879 in 2021. Our transportation system plan has a specific goal for providing a transportation system connectivity. We also have a specific objective relating to growth areas where we know that new arterial or collector connections are necessary, but we have not yet identified the specific location, mode, and or function. So this ordinance, as it currently stands with the B engrossment, is responding to this goal and objective within our transportation system plan and giving us the opportunity to work through the next decision-making part of the process. Our transportation system plan has 11 existing refinement areas for roads and 8 regional trail refinement areas. Prior studies have identified the need for multimodal connectivity within the general Cooper Mountain area. The refinement areas, as we've talked about, allow for evaluation of what that specific roadway alignment and function of a multimodal street connection will be, and we expect that to happen through the River Terrace 2.0 comprehensive planning process. So the refinement areas as proposed in the ordinance look like what is displayed on the slide. There are 2 areas that are primarily rural undesignated. Those areas are not within the urban growth boundary. They can be added to the urban growth boundary according to current rules at some point in the future when 75% of Washington County's initially identified urban reserves have been brought into the urban growth boundary. The refinement area in the middle is within Tigard's River Terrace 2.0 planning area. So we expect that the 2 refinement areas that are primarily rural and designated would not move forward for specific alignment study. It's unlikely they'd move forward for that until the area is brought into the urban growth boundary or seems very likely to be brought into the urban growth boundary in the near future. So why is it important to update our transportation system plan now? It's important for us to make sure that we're planning ahead and thinking about what connections we may need in the future so that we're not precluding a future connection when we've identified the need for one. We've had that happen in other parts of the county where we've seen significant growth and we've been blocked from doing some of the necessary infrastructure planning because we weren't thinking ahead. So this gives us, the refinement areas give us the opportunity to continue to evaluate and confirm what our preferred urban street alignments need to be and what their function needs to be prior to pending development. The refinement areas allow us to consider the future internal and broader area multimodal connectivity needs. We also can ensure coordination with the City of Tigard and ensure consistency with our adopted urban planning area agreement. The graphic on this slide shows the proposed refinement areas overlaid on top of Tigard's River Terrace 2.0 concept plan area. We've heard a number of concerns from the community throughout this process, and I want to emphasize that our work on this goes actually beyond the 2 years that this ordinance has been moving forward. Our work with the community goes back many years before that as a part of a number of planning studies that have been done in this area. Primarily, we heard a lot of concerns about bringing this area into the urban growth boundary. That decision was made to bring in the River Terrace 2.0 area by Metro Council in February of this year. So a number of the concerns we heard really were related to that decision, which was not a county decision to be made. We also heard concerns specifically about the width of a future street, what the impact of that would be, specifically for environmental concerns. We heard a lot of concerns about growth occurring in an area after a new street is built. We heard a lot of concerns about housing affordability and how infrastructure can make housing more expensive. We heard reiterated City of Tigard's concerns about planning for the future street from our community. And we heard concerns about needing a planning goal exception as a part of this ordinance. Again, with the refinement area be engrossment to the ordinance, we no longer need those planning goal exceptions based on our interpretation of transportation planning rule. A summary specifically of the concerns heard from the City of Tigard is displayed on this slide. City of Tigard has expressed clearly that they do not feel that the street connection is needed or justified. They're concerned about the environmental impact of new street connections. They're very concerned about infrastructure costs impacting housing affordability for their growth area. They're concerned about additional traffic coming to their area because of additional roadways. And they're concerned about the opportunity cost of investing in this particular piece of infrastructure over other infrastructure that they may need in their planning area. I'm going to be very clear that county staff share many of these concerns, and we are working actively with our city partners and look forward to continuing to work with them. These are very real challenges, and they are not unique to the City of Tigard. These are challenges for any of our urban growth boundary expansion areas. And again, county staff look forward to working with our partners to try to solve these problems and find solutions. So at this time, our staff recommendation is for the board to conduct the second of your 2 required public hearings for Be Engrossed Ordinance 882. And at the conclusion of testimony, to close the public hearing and adopt Be Engrossed Ordinance number 882. Then by second action, adopt the associated findings. Thank you.
At this juncture, do any commissioners have any questions on this staff report? Okay. Well then, with that, I would like to open the public hearing. Clerk Moss, who do we have?
Yes, Chair, I'll call up by 2, so we'll start with Tigard Mayor Heidi Liu, followed by Andrea D'Amico.
I knew I was being called first this time. I was prepared.
Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. My name is Heidi Liu, and I'm the Mayor of Tigard. My whole council would be here to testify this evening, but we have a council meeting and we couldn't cancel the agenda. So I'm here again to state the City of Tigard position in total opposition of Ordinance 882. There's no form of Ordinance 882 that the city can support. Tigard has been opposed to the extension of tile flats since early 2020. In our communications with the county, including my many letters that you've received, and previous testimony, we've remained steadfast in our opposition and desire to partner in finding alternatives. The City of Beaverton does not support this ordinance as stated in your packet, and the county staff and chair have been made aware of the misrepresentation. The county has refused to partner with the City of Tigard in finding alternatives and blocked the city's attempt to find funding to study the area. In fact, the study that the county staff objected to throughout our concept planning process and in negotiations with Metro for the land swap and community plan funding is exactly the study that they're asking to be done with our community plan now. It makes no sense, it's confusing and contradictory. I've been asked why we're opposed to the change from a transportation corridor to a refinement area. As you heard last week, it's a distinction without any legal difference. A refinement area says that's where the transportation facility will be built, and it's the only area that'll be studied. It doesn't ask the question if it's the right area for a transportation facility to be built at all. Washington County has been single-minded, where the only conclusion is to build this road, even before a study or findings have been made. History regarding this issue has shown that there's been no review for alternatives or no build scenarios. It was only the most recent update for this agenda item for the county that the first time that findings have been posted that were required. It's also an extremely expensive road. In 2020 dollars, over $70 million, which means it's probably at least double that now. In our MISTIP discussions earlier this week, yesterday, our district's 3 prioritized projects were $50 million, and yet we were told that was over the amount of funding available. I don't understand how we're going to fund one road that no one wants while saying there isn't the money to fund many projects that the region needs and is asking for. I really wish I could sit here today before you and say that the city and the county work together and we have something proud to support that's going to make our region better, but that's not the case here. The City of Tigard is asking you to vote no on Ordinance 882 and work with us on our community plan to plan the best transportation for the community and our future vision. Voting no means you agree to finding an alternative plan. Voting yes ensures that tile flat will be extended and not only cut the community by road, but also harm sensitive lands and prioritize cars over people. Thank you.
Please, everyone, this is not a place for audience participation. We would really like to hear from everyone. I'm not going to comment as to whether or not I agree or disagree with the sentiments that you are all applauding. There might be someone here tonight who wants to testify with a different viewpoint than you. And having clapping, howling, hooting, whatever, might intimidate that one person. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to share their viewpoints with us. So please refrain from audience participation. Thank you. Ms. D'Amico, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. My name is Andrea D'Amico, and I live in the Shoals Valley. Thank you for listening and reading for the past 2 years from me, my attorney, biologist, environmental groups, business owners, and concerned citizens. We have expressed from our hearts how wrong we feel 882 is, addressed economic concern, safety concern, climate concern, shown reports about wetlands, effects of natural resources, turned in 2,571 signatures on a petition against it, plus I have more that was handed to me tonight. Had tours showing wetlands, streams, farmlands, had press coverage. The findings on 882 that was posted since we last met doesn't change the fact that goal 2, 3, 4, yes, forest land, 5, and 14 are not being addressed. OAR 660-012-0025 and 0035 are not being followed. 882 undermines FEMA, Oregon BIOP, and even Washington County's SNR plan. The written testimony from Wendy Kellington turned in earlier today further explains those points. The findings staff posted doesn't change the fact 882 is still unlawful. Also mentioned in the finding under the timing, either the UGB expansion or statewide planning goal exception. What's up there? In March, the decision was postponed until October. Willie asked for future studies. Rogers asked for alternatives. Phi asked for our environmental issues to be addressed. The public has never seen any of those, especially an alternative. The meaning of a refinement plan, and I quote, refinement plan means an amendment to the transportation system plan that resolves at a system level determinations on function, mode, and general location, which was deferred during transportation system planning because detailed information needed to make those determinations could not reasonably be obtained.
I need you to wrap up.
1 second. What hasn't been found in 2 years? Vote no.
Thank you.
Protect our rural land.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I understand.
All right, next, Madam Chair, we have Nico Hamisher and Anna Marie Ponzi, followed by Brad. I'm going to apologize on this on your last name, Rodobush, and Teresa.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to address you today regarding this ordinance. My name is Nico Homaker. I'm a resident and small business owner on Vandermost Road. And I'm also a researcher at Columbia University in New York, where I educate and advise health professionals and global leaders and governments on the health impacts of climate change. I speak to you not only from my perspective as a concerned resident, but also as a local business owner and an advocate for the environment and public health. I grew up at Ponzi Vineyards on Vandershire Road and now Homaker Wines, Vandermost, sorry. And I'm currently a co-owner and operator of a bed and breakfast beside the winery. My livelihood and experience we provide to guests depends on the natural surroundings that make our county so unique. This ordinance threatens to undermine that habitat. This proposal also raises serious concerns about the potential destruction of crucial wildlife habitats, including beaver dams and what essentially amounts to a wetland. As a researcher studying the health impacts of climate change, I feel compelled to underscore the broader implications of this ordinance. First, while county planners just now listed some concerns, they fail to recognize the health implications additional roads are known to pose in urban areas, including increased rates of heart disease, asthma, and a variety of mental health issues, among a long list of other health impacts. Second, Washington County, like many regions, is not immune to the health impacts of climate change. Climate models analyzing heat impacts in this area anticipate a 100% increase in the number of days exceeding 92 degrees Fahrenheit in the next 30 years. These heat waves have a negative impact on our community health, and this increase will likely have serious implications, specifically for vulnerable populations. Wetlands in similar areas are invaluable in mitigating the urban heat island effect and act as natural coolers through the reduction of local extreme temperatures. Allowing the destruction of these habitats for the sake of roads is not only detrimental to our local ecology, it also ensures an increase in the average temperature of the communities immediately surrounding any potential roadway. I implore each of you to consider the implications of this ordinance, and please vote no on 882. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Ana Maria Ponzi. I'm a property owner. I'm also here representing my roles as Commissioner of the Oregon Tourism, also Oregon Wine Board Director, Oregon Wine Advisory Board, and the Oregon Wine Growers Association President. For the past 2 years, you've heard from more than nearly 3,000 concerned citizens, local business owners, farmers, property owners, the mayor of Tigard, as well as 1,000 friends, Tualatin River keepers, about this negative impact of Ordinance 882. Putting this on the back burner, otherwise known as a refinement plan, it signifies that we still aren't being heard. I was raised in Shoals at the end of Vandermost Road before my nephew showed up. This is a time when Shoals Ferry was actually a gravel 2-lane road. We established a vineyard there, which ignited a new industry for the state. Oregon's wine industry, internationally recognized, contributes over $7 billion to our state's economy. It's also responsible for the rise of our craft brewing industry and for the famed culinary scene that we all enjoy. All of these have contributed to the state's tourism industry, which now boasts over $19 billion. I often consider how fortunate we've been to have this rich land to create such an incredible boost to our state's economy. And it's been possible without stripping away natural resources, contributing to our climate crisis. In fact, quite oppositely, it has created a sustainable future. What a gift Washington County has given our state. Opportunity. Opportunity is what happens when people are intentional with their work. For decades, I've been encouraging this county to envision a healthy future utilizing its greatest asset, agriculture. But development, high tech continues to dominate. It's short-sighted, standard, build it now, we'll figure out the rest later. This approach is damaging and it presents an uninspired future. I continue to ask you, commissioners, to be thoughtful, more intentional, and I ask your staff to do the same. Think about how you can protect natural habitats and to grow with intention.
I need you to wrap up.
And I urge you to vote in opposition of 882. Thank you.
All right, I was notified the next two are not, so we will move on to the two after that. Ashley Reverman and Lily Stone.
Hello, my name is Ashley Reverman. I'm off Shoals Ferry Road. At our last public hearing on October 24th, I was struck by a statement that appeared to resonate with a few of you, to show up with a purpose on purpose. At times in our lives, I believe we do tend to struggle with finding a purpose. And then once we find it, we continue that quest on how to accomplish and carry out our intentions. I ask you, what purpose does Ordinance 882 have for the good of our great state? Oregon has a reputation and legacy that boasts of our agricultural achievements. Our wine country has been compared to Napa Valleys. Restaurants advertise a farm-to-table enticement that rivals other states who cannot cultivate the soil as Oregonians can. I fear that we will lose a part of our Oregonian reputation should we begin to use and abuse our farmlands for the urban encroachment. Do you truly want your legacies to be marred with the destruction of Oregon farmlands? I am unsure and why, with all the votes and voices against this ordinance, we still continue to be unheard. Why are we ignoring the facts that the recommendation from Transportation Planning has been do nothing? Why are we ignoring that Washington County Planning Commission is concerned about cost? Do we really believe that this is what is best in the long term? In addition, the mayor of Tigard is opposed to the expansion and line refinement plan, where they stated it to be a seat to formally decline to adopt the road into the county TSP, declined to create a refinement area, and remove tile flat extension from the county's work program. Additionally, where are the individuals who support this plan? In all the meetings we have had, only one person has shown up to support an expansion aside from city planners. However, you have many people in this room who are putting climate change, Oregon legacy and history, and the protection of Washington County farmlands at the forefront of their purpose. To reiterate, the preferential statement of showing up with a purpose on purpose is not being practiced here. Please vote no and save our Oregonian reputation.
Chair and Commissioners, my name is Lily Stone, and I live in the Shoals Valley. Thank you for the time to speak here again. In case it isn't clear, I just want to call out the fact that folks in this room that are wearing these red stickers are all those that are really concerned with this ordinance. I'd also like to call out that if you vote yes on this ordinance, it will immediately financially hurt people in this room by devaluing their properties. This is something they would have to disclose should they ever go to sell their property. For some, their property is their largest asset. This ordinance also sets a path to destroy a wetland, which would impact drinking water for those of us on wells in the area. Since the meeting on Tuesday, there has been a new report that has come out on goal exceptions regarding this ordinance. This ordinance can't become compliant with all of these goal exceptions overnight. In the staff report, I was frustrated to see a statement on Goal 3 that this proposal will not take agricultural land out of production. This will impact a Christmas tree farm. Christmas trees have to be planted 6 to 8 years before they're ready to sell. This is going to make it impossible for them to plan their crop, especially with the note on page 12 that this road will go through if a statewide planning goal exception is granted, not just in the instance of an urban growth boundary expansion. Regarding Goal 5, as I'm sure you are aware, the Department of Land Conservation and Development recently agreed that the county was out of compliance with Goal 5 on certain issues. This department issued an enforcement order directing the county to amend our natural resource regulations by October 1st, 2024. Yet here you are impacting Goal 5 resources while the surveys for these resources are still underway. Lastly, there continue to be conflicting transportation studies between the county and city on if there is actually a need here. Why continue to perpetuate and fund a proposal that we know is out of compliance on so many levels and causes harm to your constituents and natural resources? Please vote no on Ordinance 882.
Next, Madam Chair, we have John Stone and Charlene Concepcion. I got that right?
Good evening. My name is Sherilyn Concepcion. Good job pronouncing it. I have a short statement tonight. I'm a 34-year resident of Hillsboro. I know very knowledgeable experts have, and I still are giving much feedback. I've seen and read the many excellent reasons to vote no. I see no reason to vote yes, not even for theoretical future plans. I came tonight to add my presence and voice, asking to align with what the community has said, which is a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for having me again. My name is John Stone, and I live on Vandermost Road. Proponents of this ordinance have failed completely to meet statewide planning goals despite their attempt to sneak through justification at the 12th hour. The first goal is to get citizen involvement. Proponents of this ordinance have been unable to answer our questions, ignored thousands of people who have stated their explicit opposition to the ordinance, and when we have actually been able to get staff to respond to points, they went back and changed wording of the ordinance to sneak their way past real and substantial legal opposition. When we received thousands of signatures, many billboard signs, and countless letters, and dozens of people testifying against this ordinance, staff fell back on tired tropes of silent majority, or even worse, the more infantilizing, we know what's best for you. This is all after not even informing everybody who was impacted by this road in the first place years ago, an issue I know you were concerned with. Proponents of 882 just outright failed to work with other governing bodies that have jurisdiction in the area. They are trying to bully community leaders into submission, and the fact that the mayor is here expressing her concerns should be enough evidence to anyone to show that proponents of this ordinance are not in compliance with Goal 2. Additionally, this ordinance has been constantly and consistently changing. It even changed after it was engrossed. This shows a lack of planning, and it does not allow the proper time for comments or collaboration. There is no way to pretend that this ordinance is consistent with Goal 3 or 4, as it cuts diagonally across farm and forest land, substantially destroying both in a most inefficient manner. But after all, Goal 5 takes the cake. Not only does it ruin a historic farmhouse, a business, it also goes through streams, wetlands, beaver habitats, and carbon capturing forests. I don't have enough time, but thank you.
All right, next we have Tanya Steele and Lily Steele.
Commissioner Rogers, since he is on Zoom, I just wanted to share with him. We have received 2 items in hard copy, and I realize that you won't have the opportunity of them in hard copy.
Yes.
Go ahead. Thank you, Ms. Steele.
Good evening. Thank you. It's nice to see everyone again. Thank you for having us. I'm not as eloquently spoken as everyone else, and I did not write out something specific because I think many people approach the points that I would like to make also. I would like to say, while I think Erin Wardell speaks very eloquently, I believe that she is misleading you in some ways. There was a document that came out yesterday from Washington County. On page 12, it says, after the refinement area is included inside the UGB or a future exception to statewide planning goals is adopted, which takes us right back to where we started in the very beginning, which was someone asking for an exception to statewide planning goals. She continues to state to you, this development will only happen when this land is brought into the UGB, but it very clearly in writing here says that may not be the case. So I was unable to join the meeting last Tuesday, but I did hear, I believe Mr. Rogers stated he was planning for the unborn. So I wanted to address that issue. I brought 2 pictures. The first is 127-degree air temperature reading during the heat dome. That was the air temperature on a farm with trees. The second picture is the ground temperature, 146 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not asphalt. This is not concrete. This is the dirt on a farm with the trees. If you put another road here, this is the future of the unborn, 146 degrees. That's otherworldly. That does not serve the unborn. We've been selling trees the last 3 weeks. I'm a little frazzled after all that. We had a family that came. Last year, the wife, she was pregnant. She carried her U-cut tree up the hill. It put her into labor. She had her baby the very next day. She calls them the Lone Owl Farm baby. That is someone that was unborn. They came back this year and we got to meet that beautiful baby. There are many, many unborn, and we are trying to save this for them. The memories, the nature, the things that are important to all of us, not another road. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Chair and Commissioner. I am Lily Steele, and I'm here to talk about Plot 882. I have a letter from my 4th grade teacher who comes to our farm every year. I am now currently in 7th grade, and I will read you the letter from her. My dad and I started a tradition 20 years ago that just 2 of us go together to pick out our Christmas tree the week after Thanksgiving, and this has continued to bring some of our favorite memories. After I moved out of my family home, the only part that has changed is that we now get 2 trees. We would search annually for a new tree lot, never quite falling in love with one enough to return the next year. Then we found Lone Owl. Everyone there is so incredibly kind and helpful, and I've truly never had a better smelling tree. Last year, I was fortunate enough to include my own child in this tradition for the first time, and this year my dad and I balked around the farm while I currently carry my second child, who I will be adding to this tradition when he arrives. It has become an important part of our Christmas tradition, and we really hope it will stay that way for a long, long time to come. We love Lone Owl Tree Farm. If you continue to put this road in, then you will ruin their traditions and everyone else's traditions who go there as well. And like my mother said, the family who had the child born after. And please vote no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Harry Steele and Jason Hoffman.
Mr. Steele.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Harry Steele. I'm the son of Tanya Steele, the owner of Lone Owl Farm on Tile Flat Road. I've worked there for many years now. The first year that I worked at Lone Owl Farm, our main competitor was Lolich's Farm down the road, which was our principal competitor for selling trees. Lolich's is gone now. It's nothing more than a bunch of housing development. And all of the hard work and all of the effort that they put in was for nothing, because in the end, the main thing that mattered to the county was just to put in more development and to spread further and further out. And it's looking like it may be the same for the work of my mom. And if this proposition does get passed, the message that that sends to all of the people who have worked so hard to make businesses out here, many of whom are in this very room right now, is that their work is meaningless in comparison to the development occurring and the expansion of the urban growth boundary takes priority over all of the work that they've put in. And that's not a message that any of us want to hear. It's very harmful towards the goals of everybody in this room, and it serves as sort of a killing blow towards any of the progress that's being made by these individuals to help make a successful life for themselves. So I implore of you to vote no on Proposition 882.
Hi, my name is Jason Hoffman, and thank you for letting me speak. I'm here to encourage a no vote on 882. We are a farm family, and we've been farming in this valley for 45 years. We run a farm stand just south of where Tile Flat Road is, and we do farm some of the ground that this ordinance would take out. It is Class 1 soils in the area, and it is vital. Agriculture is very vital to this economy that Washington County has, as well as the agritourism that comes into this county. We are already having a hard enough time in the county moving our farm equipment from field to field and from farm to farm, and bringing more auxiliary roads that will bring more traffic into our area will make it even more challenging than what we already are facing. We have seen in the recent years a decline in Class 1 soils from developments around our area, especially on the Roy Rogers Road and the corridor, and bringing it to this ordinance, there will be more Class 1 soils decreasing in the area, as well as making it harder and harder for farmers to operate our operations. I encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Next, we have Diane Vermelli and Angela Taylor.
You want to go first? Sure. Hi, I'm Angela Taylor. I am property owner family of said beaver dams, and protecting the beavers is high on my priority list, but that's not what I came to talk about. To my understanding, this board consists of commissioners voted for by the people. You are meant to serve the community you represent, not push your own agendas. Instead, we find you ignoring valid arguments, disregarding compelling evidence in opposition, as well as pushing financial and climate irresponsibility in regards to Ordinance 882. For the last almost 2 years, the community has been here raising their voices in opposition of the Tile Flat Road extension, and we have not been heard. You have sat here while individuals, small businesses, and not-for-profits have testified against the road. All have presented arguments in opposition of. There has been overwhelming evidence and opposition to this road being built, and yet here you are still trying to pass an ordinance that your constituents are against, that respected climate and environmentalist organizations oppose, and small businesses, farmers, and hundreds of signatures on petitions also expressing their opposition. I stand corrected, thousands of signatures on petitions, as I've heard tonight. This ordinance has been billed by county officials as a need of the city of Tigard expansion, yet even the city of Tigard opposes this road. So I ask, what are we still doing here? Wasting taxpayers' money, time, and energies on what all evidence point to is outdated, ancient agendas and policies of those in power. I suggest it's time to listen to the people and the communities who you claim to represent and vote no on this ordinance.
Hello again, and thank you, Board Commissioners, for letting me speak today to voice my concerns about Ordinance 882. My name is Diane Famelli, and my husband and myself are asking that you please vote no on Ordinance 882. Today, I wanted to stress that the Tile Flat Road extension will not accomplish what it's trying to do, solve traffic congestion. It will bring in more traffic and only travel 1.25 miles to only bottleneck at Roy Roger Road. And what for? To save a couple of minutes, possibly? And the costs are outrageous, millions of dollars, and which is going to clearly go up in price. And we don't even know how much it's going to actually cost the community. It makes no sense when there are other options that will cost less and not have such a negative impact. But most importantly, this road will cross over wetlands. negatively impacting them, which is our responsibility to protect, how invaluable they are, and what an importance they play. The wetlands have been called the nurseries of life. The fact that a bridge will need to be built over the wetland at a huge cost, and it'll be a cost to both, not only financially, but to the environment. Did you know that 3 decades ago, the U.S. lost 500,000 acres of wetlands per year? Thank God the government realized what a travesty this was and changed their policy, and they saved and protect wetlands now. We need to do the same now today. Please, let's not spend another dime or time on this ordinance, and instead put this time and money working with the city of Tigard to study other options that will not be so expensive and not have such a negative impact on the environment and the community.
Thank you. I'll need you to.
Thank you. Please, the power is in your hands to preserve these wetlands and secure this treasure, not only for ourselves and community today, but for future generations. Please, please vote no on 882.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Denise Kerr and Robert Birchfield.
If you're paying attention, you can see I have a little post.
Hang on 1 second. Do we have someone manning the timer? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Denise Kerr, and I'm a Hillsborough resident for 36 years. However, my ancestors actually arrived here in 1841. I've prepared a small poster signifying my position on this ordinance. I don't have all the details everybody else has had on this ordinance. You've done a wonderful job, everybody. I would like to say that I want to ask, isn't it time we take a stand? This is a poem on the loss of our Washington County farmland, as that has been for over 150 years to be urbanized, bulldozed over, and buried in the name of traffic enhancement for a collector road that is neither needed nor necessary. It's an ugly, wealthy insider assault on our farmland by overly eager developers, speculators, realtors, and commerce into our beautiful, productive, and pollution-mitigating farmlands. In only 25 years, Washington County has lost 50% of our farmland. Let that sink in, people. We've already given the get-rich-quickies half of our agriculturally purposed grade A farm soil. When will enough be enough? When it's all gone? Ordinance 882 is one more step in a clever ploy to push out long-term citizens because wealthy people want to take our land away and turn our beautiful, sweet farm soil into luxury homes, retail stores, restaurants, and other structures for entertainment. Some wealthies will make lots of money from cutting through this patch of farmland, and it will not be the ordinary citizen nor the farmer. Cutting through the farmland is the first step in this scheme. And here's the poem. Isn't it hard to say how mutual respect has gone away? Isn't it hard to see how short-sighted, self-serving folks have led us astray? Isn't it hard to swallow how this rich soil will soon be fallow for the price of ransom? Isn't it tough to fathom a wholesale cut-up called a collector road is our new anthem? Are we so easily led astray, like a perpetrator grooms their next victim, their prey? Do we not question those who lead the way or just follow like sheep to be killed and lay?
Ma'am, I'm going to.
Isn't it time we stop this charade? It's not too late before land gets a grade.
We're not going
Stand
to
up,
have
speak
time
up,
to read
shout
the
out, be
whole
loud.
poem.
It's too bad I wasn't allowed a few more seconds to finish.
We have it in writing. Thank you, ma'am.
You do, but they don't. Thank you.
Floor is yours now, sir.
Thank you. Chair Harrington, Commissioners, my name's Rob Birchfield. I've given you written testimony that I'd like you to refer to. I'll try to briefly cover the technical part of this and then close with a summary. What you'll see is that I've taken the time to rebut staff findings from Part 6, Title 1. I believe that they've erroneously applied this figure that you see in my written testimony, which is this network, street network. Essentially, this street network concept is for spacing of roadways. It's meant to be applied in an urban or suburban context, but applied to the extension of Tile Flat Road, you're essentially stating that you would be placing a street network on rural lands that are outside the urban growth boundary, and where the development of a street network is prohibited essentially by law. And so using that as this type of concept as a justification for the need for and the placement of this arterial is nonsensical in my mind. And in addition, you'll note that this shows arterial spacing where the arterials are running parallel to each other. In fact, what would happen here is that the extension of Tile Flat Road would, as it goes south of Shoals Ferry, would turn almost immediately to the east and then be running east-west, not parallel to Roy Rogers, but intersecting the alignment of Roy Rogers. So again, the logic for the spacing of the arterial roadways doesn't make sense. I understand that a number of you would like to support the staff position. I ask that you reconsider that, given that you have strong and articulate public testimony in opposition, and you have testimony from the city of Tigard that clearly shows that you've had a falling out. I think you need to step back, take a deep breath, and realize that a yes vote on this is not a way forward. Please vote no.
All right. Next, we have Brett Morgan and Elizabeth Haugen.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, members of the Washington County Commission. It's good to be with you in person, even though I've heard from you and spoke to you multiple times virtually. For the record, my name is Brett Morgan, and I work as the Transportation Director at 1000 Friends in Oregon, but I was born and raised here in Hillsboro. My uncles and brother-in-law are blueberry, wheat, corn, hazelnut, and strawberry farmers here in the Willamette Valley in Washington County. I grew up working these farms, driving from my home inside the urban growth boundary to their farms just outside the urban growth boundary. This legacy is why I am here today and why I've dug so hard in to talk about the issues of Ordinance 882 and why 1000 Friends of Oregon has chosen to focus on this as a point of opposition. I want to offer 5 points of truth on Ordinance 882 as my testimony today, in addition to the letter that we said along with Tualatin River Keepers on the record. Truth number one, the justification for tile flat extension has been never clear. While there's many technical documents that provide some level of justification, it's never been really squarely met how this meets the local needs for connectivity, congestion relief, and given that the city of Tigard doesn't comply as well. Truth number two, this isn't just planning. You don't plan things, you plan things you want to build. And the backward nature of the policy development on this land use ordinance, going from a specific TSP amendment to now a refinement area, just gives us the impression that you're hoping that the public lose interest in this and that you'll have to kick the can down the road when you have to adopt a TSP amendment down the road. And you might have additional considerations like climate-friendly and equitable communities rulemaking, which would place additional pressure on a climate lens for these types of adoption. Truth number three, this project has a cost. While it's talked about in a very hypothetical terms, this is a future need. Because you've already identified a TSP amendment, you've already identified a dollar cost for this project, identified at $72 million in 2020, likely to be much higher. I've heard rumors that the county is pursuing the options for something like a $500 million bond for transportation. Do you want 1/5 of that cost going out for one project at the edge of your urban growth boundary? Number four, it will hurt farmland. We've lost 30% of our farmland in Washington County between 2012 and 2017. This will only exacerbate that. And this isn't do or die. A real path that does exist forward. The Mountainside Way proposal is something you can move forward, and we think that by doing that, you can actually advance a vision without necessarily having to do nothing.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm here again to ask you to vote no on 882 because I always feel like the people in rural areas are outnumbered, and we rely on you to make the decisions that will benefit us as well as the developed areas. In Commissioner Fye's statement, she said that transportation has to be sustainable, equity-informed, and a policy, and we don't think that this road is sustainable or equity-informed because I have not seen a single person or heard from a single person in all these years that is in favor of this road. So in the long-range work program for 2023 to 25, it has several pages of climate-friendly practices, and it states that a climate-friendly area is an area where residents, workers, and visitors can meet most of their daily needs without having to drive. This seems kind of incongruent with building a new road through farmland. It is proposed to be a feeder line that is a 20-mile-an-hour slow go. I don't know of any road that has been developed that is that. Aaron Waddell in 2021 mentions that the Tile Flat Road extension is expected to have a higher cost than the baseline alternatives. It offers little evidence that it will truly solve the issues and will cost a fortune. We are asking you, as everyone has through all this time speaking to you, that you hear the people in the rural areas and consider us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so as last of our signups, was there anyone that wished to testify on this ordinance? Okay, please come forward, Rich Vile, and then please come forward. And after this, we will move to the online testimony, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Vile.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I often don't find myself in agreement with some of the folks that are here. As you probably know, I have been an advocate for increasing the amount of rubber tire access roads that we have here in the county. As the chair of the Planning Commission back in 2017, I worked to get an amendment to the TSP that would require us to look at a real solution to the north-south problems that we have right now, particularly interurban. We've got Sherwood working in Hillsborough and vice versa, and we have not got the roads that are necessary to take care of that. This particular proposal would be, I think, problematic more than just kicking the can down the road. It exacerbates an existing problem. We bought our first farm on Shoals Ferry Road in 1986 of 24 acres. We've now grown as a family to about 250 acres on 5 farms in the Shoals area. Our primary crop is table grapes, which serve the school districts. We provide school lunch grapes to all the area school districts. I can't get them out. And the problem is because whether it's Grabhorn or 175th, or any of those roads around there that go up into the Beaverton School District area, we're not able to get the grapes up there because those farm-to-market roads have now been taken over by the commuters. This tile flat extension would simply add more traffic to Grabhorn that's already there. I urge you not to kick the can down the road again by working on this one and go back and look at the real problem and look at a true north-south limited access highway, which this west side needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stone. Sorry.
That's fine. No worries, yes. Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. My name is Aaron Nichols. I live at 11,000 Northwest Jackson Quarry Road, Hillsborough, Oregon. I farm next door. I want to address you tonight on behalf of Farmland First, a county-wide organization protecting farmland and agricultural communities that keep the county strong now and will continue to keep it vital in the future. As you consider the extension of Tile Flat Road, I ask you to consider it in a larger county-wide context of decisions that have hurt our agricultural communities, paved over our farmland, made us a less resilient community as we face the effects of climate change. In the last 5 years, we have data for Washington County lost 23% of its farmland. But to keep this both local and timely, we can look at just the attempts to pave over Washington County farmland this year. While I'm sure it's not a comprehensive list, I've testified against more than 1,700 acres being added to Hillsborough through legislative superseding in January, 855 acres of land being added to North Plains through a UGB expansion plan the DLCD said relied on incorrect facts starting in May, 200 acres of urban reserve farmland being added to Hillsborough's IRA at a potential cost of $370 million in September, and now an unnecessary and very expensive road expansion that will further parcelize and break up farmland in the south of the county. Even though many of these schemes have already failed and others will soon, each attempt raises the price of farmland and harms our farm communities as speculators move in and farmers facing increasing burdens and decreasing opportunities move out. There are a lot of things that I, and I think all of us here, don't know about Ordinance 882 in the context of paving over the lands that'll feed us in the future. I don't know if this is an ordinance that pushes farmers in the productive southern part of the county out of farming. And one of the reasons I don't know this, and the reason you'll have to make these decisions in the dark, is because we don't have the data or the maps of where our critical farmland is. We don't know or support the shared infrastructure that keeps it working. We repeatedly choose to harm our farm communities and destroy our farmland despite that ignorance. There's something I do know about Ordinance 882 and other expensive and unnecessary development of high-value farmlands. We're paying large sums for projects that exacerbate climate change, reduce our resilience, and leave our children in a denuded and less fertile world. I ask, before you consider moving on with Ordinance 882, get the data and understand what the long-term consequences are to our farms and our future resilience so we can, eyes open, make the choice between an expensive and unwanted road and our future food security. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the last one in the room is Miki Blizzard.
I apologize for getting your last name wrong. I was starting to articulate the name of your farm.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Miki Blizzard. I live in unincorporated Washington County. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge and congratulate everybody who has shown up, testified, added their signatures to their concerns about Ordinance 882. And I want them all to know that regardless of how the vote goes, you are making a difference. And I congratulate your involvement in this issue. It's hard to believe that nearly 35 years ago, I sat at this very spot urging the Commission to adopt LUTRAC instead of a western bypass. And LUTRAC, of course, was the land use alternative of mixed uses served by transit and walkable communities designed so people wouldn't have to drive long distances. And had the county and the local jurisdictions followed through on those recommendations, we probably would not be here today. Instead, what we're having is more of the same. The proposal for more roads, which creates more traffic, which creates more emissions, which devastates farmlands, wetlands, and moves us further down the devastating road of climate change. That hasn't worked in 75 years, and I don't know why one more road is going to solve the problem. You know, and I believe you know that as well as I do. You have good staff here. They know how to plan, engineer, and build, but they're being directed to move us toward the wrong future, and 75 years has proven that. I ask you to direct them to a better future. We know how to do this. We have the technology. We have the creativity to do this. And this is a good opportunity to make a better future happen for us all. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to online. First up, I have Dawn Hornish. Dawn, can you hear us?
I hear you.
Yep, please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Well, thanks for letting me join virtually. And hearing all these testimonies it's inspiring. Nice job, everybody. I'm a fifth generation Oregonian, and this is painful watching this whole process. I agree with everybody who spoke prior to me. I echo all of their concerns. In addition to just the fiscal responsibility that the county has in making a decision to put this road in is wrong. Right now, there's 2 other projects that are having funding issues that are trying to support some of the mega subdivisions that are being put in. One of them widening Shoals Ferry to 4-lane road between Murray Rogers and Tile Flat. It's stuck right now. It's having funding issues. That particular project's only 8.25 million. The other project that's stuck because of fiscal challenges is the widening of Tile Flat between Shoals Ferry and the urban growth boundary. That one is only 3.3 million. And now we're talking about a road that's over $70 million. I've heard the word take care or plan for the unborn. Birth control is a good option for that. And if you can't afford what you're asking for, maybe you should just say no. I finished early.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Ken Barker. Ken, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Chair Harrington and County Commissioner. My name is Ken Barker, and I live in Tigard, and I'm a member of the board for the Tualatin Riverkeepers. I'm also enjoy the wonderful nature the Tualatin River provides, both for boating and for the health of the environment and the people. I'm testifying today to state my strong opposition to Ordinance 882 due to the impact it would have on farmland, natural resources, and water quality. Once again, we want to emphasize the importance of protecting our local tributaries and wetlands, and the importance of preserving riparian and upland habitat to improve water quality and protect native species. The unnamed tributary has been positively identified for threatened steelhead. Additional impervious surfaces increase stormwater output, washing road runoff into a tributary that feeds directly into the Tualatin River, washing in toxins that are lethal to juvenile salmonoids. Conservation needs and growth tend to be at odds with one another. State Land Use Goal 5 creates an avenue for compliance where a new use conflicts with natural resource protections. Do not be deceived. This is a conflicting use. Regardless of the designation as a refinement area, the ordinance limits its intentions to a small designation within the area with very little room for flexibility. Therefore, natural resources will be negatively impacted and this conflict must be addressed. This is a step in the wrong direction for the county, especially given the other work the county is doing to protect and preserve the natural river. The county has not justified the purpose and need for the ordinance, and the risk to farmland, natural resources, and water quality makes this ordinance an unappealing proposal. For those reasons, amongst others, we ask the County Commission once and for all to vote against Ordinance 882. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mark Fitzsimmons. Mark, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and I just unmuted.
All right, please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and County Commissioners. My name is Mark Fitzsimons. I'm a Tigard resident and a Tualatin Riverkeeper staff member. I too am testifying to state my strong opposition to Ordinance 882 due to the impact it would have on farmland, natural resources, and water quality. Water is the lifeblood of our communities and our county. The protection of the Tualatin River's tributaries, riparian areas, wetlands, and upland habitat will ensure the protection of native species and water quality for generations. Every action has a downstream impact. Adding over $100 million worth of impervious concrete and asphalt will only increase stormwater output, compromising water quality standards, and affecting designated uses such as recreation. It's even more frustrating given that the county has failed to adequately identify a need for the refinement area designations. This creek is also at the heart of one of the wildest stretches of the Tualatin River, and my favorite, Paddle. The river runs for nearly 17 miles between the closest current points of public access here. It passes a half dozen Tualatin River National Wildlife Refuge units, metro natural areas. Habitat fragmentation here will have a far greater consequence than on any other stretch of the river. Washington County has made significant efforts to protect and preserve the Tualatin River and its tributaries. Approving this resolution would be a serious, serious setback Given the impact the proposed road extension will have on farmland, natural resources, and water quality, I do not see sufficient justification or need for the ordinance. It just seems like a monstrously expensive shortcut. I too ask the county commissioners once and for all to vote against ordinance 882. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else via Zoom that wishes to provide public comment on this public hearing for up to 2 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any additional hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. And with that, I will close tonight's public hearing. And I would like to open up the floor for Board of Commissioner comments. But before I do, I would like to contribute that I heard a mention of the City of Beaverton position. And I would just like to state for the record that Washington County staff has not misrepresented the City of Beaverton position, as we have a letter, said letter of support dated November 16th, 2021, regarding this work for this ordinance and the Tile Flat Road extension. Yes, I said 2021. That was in the early days of this ordinance. So I respect that elected boards change over time, and even with the same board, viewpoints can change. But I wanted to make sure to share with all of you that Washington County staff, our professional staff, has in no way misrepresented that position. So with that, I'll open up the floor for our commission comment, or I can make some further comments at this juncture if you'd like. And Commissioner Rogers, don't hesitate to speak up as well.
You bet.
Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Before we discuss here, I would like to extend my appreciation to those who have been here to provide information, to provide testimony. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Just a quick clarification. In our work session, we talked about making an amendment. Is that coming, or are we changing plans?
So I wanted to make sure that as chair, I gave my colleagues the opportunity through an open floor to make any comments they would like, or to ask any questions of our staff if they would like. So it seems that at this juncture, perhaps we might be better served if I spoke first. So at our meeting on December 5th, I spoke to my view and the need to better engage with the City of Tigard, excuse me. And I continue to feel that way, that we should, in my opinion, take a pause, step back for a second, and have some open dialogue before we take any final action specific to the neighborhood area of River Terrace 2.0. And River Terrace 2.0 is a UGB expansion area, and we as the county do work for major arterials and collectors for each UGB expansion area. We also find ourselves in somewhat of an interesting situation where we have the South Cooper Mountain UGB expansion area, the River Terrace 2.0 UGB expansion area, and the King City expansion area. And there is a transportation network that, circulation within each of these areas. And I, for one, want to make sure that we don't end up with situations where residents have one way in and one way out. And that we continue to practice good multimodal and connectivity, much like you've heard reference tonight, once again from Mayor Liu, but also from different community members. But we also have to make sure that these adjoining areas connect up, that when there's a cross street across, for example, Bull Mountain Road or Roy Rogers Road, that the intersections align up. And some of this kind of work is embodied in the urban planning area agreements that have been worked out in prior years. But in my opinion, it won't hurt for us to take a pause and have more of a conversation with one another that formal processes like these with public hearings don't allow for. So this afternoon at our work session, in preparation for this evening, I gave my colleagues a heads up that that is an option that I am open to, so that I wouldn't be surprising them up here on the dais with such an option. So I think that is perhaps what Commissioner Fye is referring to. I also will share at this point that in our roles, we are very reliant upon our professional staff to do the technical planning work across all of our local cities and service districts. It's vital work, and we rely upon them to do this work in coordination with one another, not just on greenfield development, such as UGB expansion areas, but also to support community redevelopment of areas throughout Washington County within the existing urban growth boundary, so that we're making highest and best use of land across our county. And that is the work that our planning staff endeavors to do. They are good people, they're thoughtful people, and I continue to respect their efforts and look forward to doing more of the same. I know I may not be reiterating the various points that I made last Tuesday. I didn't find the need to repeat all of those again, but rather speak to some of what I have heard tonight. But I also do want to say thank you to all of you, not only those of you who showed up tonight in person or on Zoom, and to those who have shown up in prior meetings, including Planning Commission meetings, and those of you who have written us letters and sent us email. I recognize different names and different messages, and I know my colleagues have pored over that material as well. It is not lost on us. Yes, we do hear you as we go about our decision-making. So,
and given that, I would like to make a motion, but before I make that motion, I do want to say that the purpose behind the motion I'm going to make is to give the board the opportunity to work with the leadership of the city of Tigard, to give our administration the opportunity to work with the administration of the city of Tigard as well. And as we go through this, I think that we will come out with a better ending. And that's the purpose that I know all of us want to work toward, and I believe it's what you would like us to work toward as well. To that end, I would like to move to continue the Be Engrossed Ordinance number 882 for board deliberation to a date certain of January 30th, 2024. So that is my motion.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Would any commissioners like to share any comments before we take a vote?
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments. I would have done that a bit ago, but I think we all had some things we wanted to say. First of all, I apologize for not being there tonight. I have a bit of an eye problem, and it makes it a little difficult when it gets dark at night. And so I unfortunately have to be there by Zoom. To those who have said, we want you to hear us and consider what we're saying, I would tell you that that's unanimous amongst the five of us. We are hearing you, we are considering. So that's never been an issue. I've heard that we somehow are not listening, and that the staff of the county has not been either truthful or forthright. And the staff's done an excellent job, and they're tasked with coming up with a way to move people from town center to town center, from one area of the county to another area, and so they're simply doing their job. That's what they're doing. They're not trying to be mean-hearted or spirited about anything. I also appreciate that a couple of people have mentioned, and I made the comment, I have to represent the unborn. I think that's true. And I think that you need to all understand the interesting position that this county board finds itself in. We're not building those houses. We didn't expand into those areas. That's all the cities. And we know that there's about 75,000 people. That's bigger than the city of Tigard in the areas of South Cooper Mountain and Tigard in their expansion efforts, and King City and Sherwood's now looking at it well. And I understand that people want walkable communities. They want to have bikeable communities. But the reality in all of these expansions by cities, not by the county, is we're not seeing industrial land. We're not seeing major employment areas. What we're seeing is housing. And so the county is in a very interesting position. It's not tasked with building these houses. We're not tasked with putting in subdivisions. We're tasked with the unenviable position of saying, what kind of services are we going to have to connect those areas as they develop? So that's what we're grappling with. My own personal opinion, Vandermost, it would be a terrible road to go down, a terrible area to infringe upon with the wetlands and the issues in there. So that's never been an option. But when Tigard came in with their plans of expansion, at least, and staff can tell me, I didn't hear any cries of don't put any connector roads through our area. It's now a theme, I understand, and we were criticized about that tonight. But I didn't hear that. I think if the board had heard that early on, probably would have had maybe a different opinion or a different look on the urban growth boundary expansions. But that, we are where we're at, and I get it. Tigard's a good partner, as well as King City, as well as Sherwood. So I think that we're tasked with doing some things that are not popular, they're not fun. People always criticize government years later, saying, who were those knuckleheads who didn't put in those amenities and structures that were needed 20 years ago? And I guess that's us if we don't take a look and say, how do we address these particular needs? The only concern I have about the motion of continuing, it says we're going to work with Tigard. This is a much bigger problem than Tigard. I mean, you've got very close in there, you've got King City with their major development that's going to add substantial numbers of folks to their city. You've got the city of Sherwood with their Sherwood East proposal. And you've got Tualatin, who frankly, just like Wilsonville, and I represent those, they have as many people leaving every day as coming in. A lot of people going to Hillsborough, a lot of people going to Beaverton and other areas. So it was a lot of words to simply say, this is hard stuff. If it was easy, we'd make it easy. And it's not that we don't care. I was born and raised in this state. My parents were born and raised in this state. If we could go back all that time ago, we would have a population of about 20% of what we have now, and we wouldn't have these kind of issues. But we continue to have people who want to go onto farmland. We continue to have the cities expand, and that's the way it is. That's what we're faced with, and now this board has to deal with it. So I'm hoping we can find a solution. I hope one that's palatable. I'm hoping that we can plan for a future that's difficult at best. I've told this board and others that where I grew up is gone. It didn't. There isn't anything in terms of even people. It's just all industrial. It was in Portland, and so it doesn't look like it did. It's a great loss of habitat, but hopefully we're not going to repeat that indefinitely. But I don't know quite how to address that. People keep coming, and we keep putting them on smaller lots, and we keep putting great numbers of folks on lands, and so we have to figure out how we move those people from the south to Hillsborough, how the Hillsborough people come to Tualatin and around and so forth. So anyway, we do care. I will stop. I will support your motion to continue, but I think it needs to be a bigger dialogue than just county and the city of Tigard. I think it needs to be, how are we solving a bigger area and a bigger set of issues? So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. I do want to clarify that the motion did not delineate who we would be talking to, but I understand your position. Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to make a comment. Thank you. Thank you, everyone that came and took the time. This is what advocacy looks like, so I hope you're proud. I support Ordinance 882, and I've said it before, and just to reiterate, I do believe that this ordinance does promote responsible and equitable development while also fostering progress. Now, here's the thing. Long-range planning demands a nuanced approach to address the transportation needs of the future. I believe that by adopting this ordinance with the refinement area, we can work with our partners to implement a strategy that takes into consideration both the growth in this community and limits the environmental impacts. However, if this ordinance is going to continue into 2024, I expect the city of Tigard to use this time to meaningfully work with the county. I also expect that whatever plan that is identified, that environmental constraints and impact is minimized and addressed up front. Thank you to Washington County staff. I trust your expertise, and I appreciate the heavy lifting that you've done with this ordinance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've heard each one of you, sometimes a couple of times, sometimes more than a couple of times, and I appreciate your input and your passion and your willingness to come out here tonight and spend your night with us. I have to admit that your list of 2,500 signatures doesn't have that impact on me because a good number of them are from outside of the state of Oregon and probably couldn't find Tile Flat Road with an Uber driver and GPS. It makes no difference to me. You make the difference to me. You're showing up here, you being very cordial, encouraging, passionate. That means a lot to me. So I'm more than willing, I'm happy that we're going to extend this, have more conversation. I will be asking the staff to address the issues where you say we are out of compliance. It's very important that we be in compliance. So I want to make sure that that happens. But other than that, thank you for your continued involvement in this. And let's hit the pause button. And let's look for either other options or ways that we can mitigate this significant growth just in this particular area. As Roy has said, it's bigger than this. But if you look at 3,500 to 5,000 homes going in, and there's one way in and one way out of this neighborhood, that doesn't work. It decreases values and certainly availability for people to get in and get out of there. So we've got to have other options. So let's see if we can find them. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Treese, you made the motion, but I don't know if we gave you an opportunity to say anything yet.
I've.
You've
made my
said your piece, that's
Thank you
just
very much.
fine.
I'd just like to see our vote.
Okay, great. I would like to ask after we take our vote that we take a 5-minute recess, or it can be a little longer than that. But there's just someone who I've seen tonight that I haven't seen in a few years, and I would like to have the opportunity to say hello. So, Mr. Anderson, are we fine with a voice vote on this motion, or would you prefer a roll call?
You could do either, but a roll call would be preferred.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue be engrossed ordinance 882 for further board deliberations to a date certain of January 30th, 2024. With that, Clerk Moss, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Chair Harrington. Commissioner Fye?
Yes.
Commissioner Treese?
Yes.
Commissioner Willie?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rogers?
Yes.
Chair Harrington?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously 5-0, and we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Thank you. I don't understand how the intermission clock keeps changing.
But it should.
We're 2 minutes overdue in getting back to our meeting. Hello, folks. You're going to either need to take your conversation out into the hallway or end them, please. Okay, folks, we need to get on with our meeting. We have 3 action items on our posted agenda, in addition to another set of public communication and board announcements. And I say that because I was asked what the remainder of the meeting was about, so I thought that would be good to offer up. So, thank you. I'm waiting for the door to be closed. The first item on our action agenda tonight is to adopt the findings for B engrossed ordinance 882. And obviously, since we're continuing that ordinance for our further board deliberation to our future meeting, we need to have a motion to table this item for that, at least that very same meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of said motion, thank you for raising your hands. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0 to table that. All right, next we'll move on to our action item to adopt the County and Clean Water Services 2024 state and federal legislative agendas. A lot, all in one sentence.
Yes, makes titling hard. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners and Chair. I am Erin Doyle, your Senior Government Relations Manager, and I believe Tracy is online to introduce herself.
Hi, yes, good evening. I'm Tracy Rainey, Senior Policy Analyst for Clean Water Services. My apologies for not being there with you in person tonight, but I've still got a little bit of a cough and I didn't want to share that with you all.
Thank you for not sharing germs.
Good evening, Board. Tonight we're here to seek your approval of the 2024 legislative agendas for both Clean Water Services and Washington County for our federal and state legislative work. Tonight's presentation is to remind you of the proposed agendas and highlight the updates that were made since we last met at your work session last week. So first, to start with, we're going to highlight the changes that were made from the 2023 to the proposed 2024 agenda at the federal level. There are limited changes to this agenda as the federal process always moves at a slower pace than the work of the state and local level. On the county agenda, as we discussed last week, we are suggesting one change to the principles that guide the work of the government relations team, including our federal lobbyists. This change reflects that we are less focused on the ongoing work to recover from COVID-19 and into finding the resources and tools that will address the next public health challenges through a broader statement of support for investment in public health funding. Tracy?
Yeah, great, thank you. Clean Water Services had one new priority to add to the federal legislative agenda for 2024. That is shown on the screen. The other federal priority items are items that we're carrying over from the 2023 legislative agenda. Our federal agenda format has typically included a brief summary of the priority, and that is also included here on the slide as just a FYI. This priority, including the summary, can be found on page 21 of the linked PDF document that was included in your board packet for this evening. All of our proposed federal priorities for 2024 are included starting on page 19 and going through page 21 of the linked PDF document. So there were no changes made from on this priority from last week. And I'll pause there for any questions before turning it back over to Erin.
Seeing no questions, I will move on to the state agenda. As a reminder, the state agenda for the county consists of 3 parts: the guiding principles, legislative priorities, and the county service-specific guiding principles. And the Clean Water Services section consists of 2 parts: guiding principles and priorities. The one thing that we did not highlight in this presentation, but that we did in both the federal and state agendas, were Scrivener's updates for things like dates, and also the contact information to reflect your current GR team for both the county and Clean Water Services. Within the county's portion of the agenda, I'll focus here on the priorities as we made no changes to the guiding principles. This is the first 2 of 3 recommended priorities for the board's consideration this evening. Given that it's a short session, we don't have a lot of time, but we still know that we have a lot of work. And these priorities and the supporting statements that are included as bullet points reflect the changes and conversations that your government relations team had with your board last week at the work session. First, we are proposing to continue the priority from 2023 to ensure that we have the funding needed to do the work that the state requires of us. The supporting points speak to the community corrections in particular, but also to not creating new unfunded mandates. The words were also updated to reflect the conversation around stabilization and full funding for community corrections per your guidance. The second priority that we have recommended for your consideration is to seek to prioritize the need for assistance in getting workforce for the county, but we changed the supporting bullet points to address that this is not limited to the behavioral health workforce, but across all workforce needs pursuant to that conversation with you last week. And finally, because we can't fit them all on one page, our final proposed priority is the continuation of the work for funding of the courthouse planning. We have replaced the language of the priority itself to reflect your work in the work session to wordsmith how we stated that this is necessary for the judicial system serving our growing community. We also updated the second bullet point to discuss the need for additional courtrooms per our conversation with you at the work session. And we added the third bullet point, which talks about the need for additional judges, and pursuant to the conversation with your board last week, re-emphasize that this is to meet the needs for the state to meet its obligations related to the state's circuit court system within Washington County, as we discussed last week. And with that, I'll pause here on the priorities to make sure that we have captured your needs, and if there's any questions.
I think they are excellent.
Thank you. The team did a great job in catching all of your recommendations. Moving on to the service guiding principles, this was reflected in our work session conversation last week related to the housing and homelessness Washington County guiding principles for the services of the Housing Services Department. These are not changed from what you saw last week pursuant to the fact that you didn't ask for changes at the work session. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy to talk about the Clean Water Services state priorities.
Great, thank you, Erin. For our proposed state legislative agenda, we've outlined the 2 priorities where the board had feedback and requested some revised language to make the intent of those priorities a bit clearer. The first priority on the slide was one that we had for 2023 as well. Per the board's input last week, we modified it to include both industrial and commercial expansion, where it had previously only focused on infrastructure readiness for potential industrial expansion opportunities. We also received board input last week on the second item on the slide, which is a newly proposed state legislative priority for 2024. The board feedback during last week's work session was that the priority needed to be more specific and reflect conversations in the intent around housing production. So we have revised it to read to ensure that policies to promote housing are protective of public health and the environment, including Clean Water Act requirements and state water quality standards and requirements. These were the only 2 priorities from last week that were requested to be revised. The other priorities for the state legislative agenda for 2024 can be found on page 34 of the linked PDF document. And then I'll pause again before turning it back to Erin.
With that, board, I would just like to say that I note some appreciation for my team. Both Zucker and Pablo had other commitments this evening. That's why they're not here with me. But they did an incredible amount of work to refine and reform based on the conversations we've had with you. I would also like to give a shout out to the comms team in putting together these PDF versions of the draft legislative agendas that look nice as opposed to just a PowerPoint slide. If your board so chooses to adopt this evening, we will work to get those shared with our delegations at both the state and federal level as quickly as possible, taking out the draft watermarking. Appreciate the conversation and look forward to doing this work for you on behalf of the county, the commission, and the needs of our community in 2024. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to dive right into it, Board. I think our staff from both agencies, Washington County and Clean Water Services, have done a terrific job of taking our input all along the way and helping us craft a clear agenda of what we think would best serve our communities as we endeavor to be both one Washington County and par excellence Clean Water Services. So we are very well served by our professional staff, and I want to thank you for all the work that goes in to make all of this happen each week. So commissioners, with that, any comments?
I'd say well said. It's a great team effort. Good job on that. Good job, Tracy. Thank you.
I absolutely agree, and now it's go get them.
Does that mean you're making a motion to adopt the 2024 federal legislative agenda and the 2024 state legislative agenda as presented for both Washington County and Clean Water Services?
Yes, it does. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Get well, Tracy. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to move to a completely different topic, ambulances. And we have some amendments to the Emergency Medical Service Administration rules. And we have our subject matter experts here. And I know that they're ready for any question we can come up with.
That's correct, Chair. Well, good evening, Chair Harrington, Board of County Commissioners. My name is Mira Samantal. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services, and I'm really pleased to be here tonight, as you said, with two subject matter experts, Adrienne Donner and Tim Case. Adrienne's a program supervisor with Public Health, and Tim Case is a senior program coordinator, and they will go ahead and do today's presentation and answer all those good questions.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Nice to see you. Okay, I will jump right in and go as quick as I can without speaking too fast. We're going to talk a little bit about the EMS governance documents and what to expect going forward. Just give an overview of the changes, which are not significant, and then ask for approval of the resolution in order. So I'll start. That font is bigger on my computer, so I apologize for that. I wanted to let you know we have hit a milestone now. We are fully transitioned into this new phase of EMS. The last step happened in at the 1st of November when the 911 communication center started to dispatch directly our basic life support ambulances. This is very exciting, and we have been waiting with bated breath. So with that, we've made a couple of changes to our EMS Alliance, our admin rules. And then we move in with all of our documents now to what is a more standard cadence of maintenance. So you each have a role in all 4 of our governance documents. You approve 3 of them, you endorse the ambulance service area plan, and each has a different cadence of review. The state requires us to review the ambulance service area plan every 4 years. Of course, if we have a significant change in operations, we may have to do it earlier, and likely there will be changes when we review at the 5-year mark. We look at our code periodically. It's so high level that we don't anticipate changes in that document frequently at all. And then we look at the EMS administrative rules. We keep an eye on those just as things shift and move to make sure that we are capturing all the needed rules for the system. And we do a real review once a year. The likelihood of update, it mixes year to year, but since we have recently cleaned it all up, I think we're good for a little while. And then finally, we have the franchise agreement. Any changes to the body of that agreement comes to you. We have just had one a month or so ago, and expect we'll have another one as we grow into that contract and identify some clarity that's needed. But we designed it so that the very detailed appendices, which are deep into the compliance and operations, we can change those without coming back to you. They don't change the overall body of the contract. So really our plan moving forward is to move into a more normal cadence of update. We will, whenever we can, combine document changes together. So we come to you with a full story and a few changes, unless there's something that is desperately needed for the operations of EMS, in which case we'll come faster. And then really looking at, we're sadly reducing the times we see you for EMS. But we will still see us in non-governance documents, for instance, EMS Week, stuff like that, where we're just updating on the system and bringing the positive as well. Okay, I'm going to pass it to you, Tim.
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Tim Case, Senior Program Coordinator with EMS. Good to see all of you again, Chair Harrington, Commissioners. As Adrian mentioned, we're getting into a more stable routine of making updates to the administrative rules in other governance documents, and that's exactly what we're bringing to you today. The changes are largely editorial. We've made some changes throughout the document to increase clarity and fix minor things. You know, as the example shows, the Board of Commissioners is changed to Board of County Commissioners. And we've also shifted some language throughout the document, such as moving from provider to clinician, and that's in line with an industry shift to drop the use of the term provider when referencing an individual, and it supports our obligation to accurately and respectfully refer to healthcare professionals, as well removes any confusion since a provider can also be an entity. The other change that you'll see is moving from response time to response interval. A time marks a moment a specific event occurs, while the interval accounts for that temporal distance between the two times. And really, it's when word choice matters, it's our responsibility to be unambiguous in what we're measuring and what the expectation is. Next slide, please. Additionally, to complete the transition to our tiered 911 system that includes both an advanced life support, or ALS, and basic life support, or BLS, service level, we added language to Section 200, which included licenses for those BLS ambulances, as well as adding language to Section 400, which specified the minimum staff requirements for the BLS ambulances as well.
And then the final two changes are in Section 200, which speaks to our provider licenses. We added in a piece in 200-110, which speaks to the ability for our franchisee to subcontract if needed. They've already had that permission granted through the franchise agreement, but we noted it was missing in the admin rules, so we wanted to have that added in. And then Section 600 operations has a section around the Communications Center Protocol, which is just not it's an obsolete reference at this point since all of our communications now are through WACA. So then we come to our ask to approve the resolution in order to update the EMS administrative rules, and of course, an opportunity to ask any questions you might have.
Commissioners, I'd like to open up the floor to see if you have any questions, comments, or otherwise.
Yeah, thank you. And the three of you, plus Marnie, I appreciate the time that you gave me. I sent you the questions, you responded to them. We had a good dialogue about that, so thank you very much for your time and educating me in this whole process. I am looking forward to the subcontractor implementation because we all know, as I said in our meeting, job one is to provide safety and access to ambulance and emergency services to all of our constituents in Washington County. And to me, that's still top priority, so I'm going to be watching as this subcontractor thing rolls out, because I firmly believe one ambulance company can no longer facilitate the entire needs of the region, since it's the same ambulance company for the Tri-County. So you know that, I've said that to you, and so I'll be constantly probably bugging you, asking you questions, but thank you. I do appreciate the time that you spent with me.
Other commissioners?
I just want to say thank you for the work, and we are at a point where we can take a deep breath and let it out. And it's good work that you've done, and it's been exhausting. I mean, there's all sorts of changes, even to the point of changing names now from provider to clinician, and all of those things. So I appreciate the professional way you have approached all of these things, and the fact that we can look at opportunities like subcontracting. I wouldn't have thought that we'd be able to do that a year ago. So my hat is off to you.
I have two small questions. First one is, could you help me understand, by the way, the slide about that has the circle with the diagram spot on. I really appreciate it. It was very clear to follow with the memo that came with this information. I was trying to follow the board's role in all the 4 buckets, and could you help me understand better the endorsed by the board bucket? And then I'll ask my other question later on.
Absolutely. The ambulance service area plan is actually approved by the Oregon Health Authority. So they require that you endorse it. So we have taken it to you, you've reviewed it, you stamp it with your endorsement, and then they review it and ironically ask us for changes and then approve it. So the process is a little circular, but ultimately we need your endorsement in order to submit it to them for approval.
We initiate the documents.
Yeah.
And then they approve it, and then we endorse.
You endorse first.
First.
Yeah, and we generally what we did the last time, because it's a little circular and we'd have to come back and forth if they ask for changes, is we say if there aren't any significant changes asked by the state, we'll go with your endorsement. If the state comes back and says, no, we need you to do something completely different, we would make those changes and then come back again and have you endorse. We didn't have to do this last time. They needed editorial changes. So you endorse what we hope is the final version, and then they approve.
They approve, okay. And then do we re-endorse if there is an edits, significant edits that happen?
Yeah, if they came back and wanted us to change how we document how operations happen, we would bring it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the other question that I had, super minor, and it was just a wording difference between clinician and the provider piece of it. And I probably am internalizing the word clinician to be like a doctor or a nurse. So that's not what you mean in the memo. It says an individual. So, and then I heard you say provider could be an entity. So what are we talking about here?
So that's a great question. The term provider had become kind of interchangeable between the two, whether it was a person delivering healthcare or an entity. And a lot of professional journals and professional societies are moving away from referring to an individual as a provider, again, because it can be used as an entity. So to differentiate the two, and they're adopting the term clinician, whether that is, and I think it really depends on the society that's adopting that change. We're taking our lead from the National Association of EMS Physicians, and in their style guide for their peer-reviewed journal, referring to EMS personnel as clinicians that are licensed to deliver medicine in the out-of-hospital area.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just, while it wasn't phrased as a question, Commissioner Willie, AMR subcontract with Metro West went into effect on Monday, and they have been deployed 4 to 6 times per Metro West report out today. So it apparently very well, very smoothly with WACA and with everything in the system. You're welcome.
Commissioner Rogers, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, Madam Chair, I appreciate all the work. This is complex stuff, and I think that the staff has done a good job.
Thank you. As mentioned in your presentation, there are these 4 significant pieces. I appreciate the diagram that you presented tonight in ensuring that we all have a good sense for the different pieces. Over the last few years, you've taken us through building a system, right? The whole EMS Alliance, and really exemplary work over the years. So thank you for having that grounding diagram as we go through potential enhancements into future years. I will add that in having conversations with the other two Tri-County chairs about ambulance service across our region, particularly in light of this national workforce shortage that we have for paramedics and even for emergency medical technicians, EMTs, I have really come to appreciate, and I think they too are a bit envious of the work that you have taken us through over the last 5 years in re-architecting the system and with the approach, the new best practices approach that you all have created for us to support. So once again, big thanks, and onward ho we go together. And I'll put in a plug for anyone who wishes to become a paramedic or an EMT. Washington County is a wonderful place to live, work, and play. So please do consider careers right here in Washington County, Oregon. So with that, I would like to ask for a motion to adopt the resolution and order amending the Emergency Medical Services Administrative Rules as set forth in Exhibit A.
So move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimous, 5-0. That brings us to our second public comment opportunity of this evening. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone who's been waiting patiently to address us this evening?
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I did not see anyone sign up, but would any member in the auditorium wish to provide public comment on any county-related topic up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to raise your hand, come forward, get my attention. Not seeing anyone in the room. Would any member online wish to provide comment on any county-related topic for up to 5 minutes? Give you just a moment to utilize the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, Chair Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss. Next, I'll move to board announcements. And before I get to describing or listing out our future meetings, I would like to touch on a couple of things. First and foremost, I would like to recognize that one of our assistant county administrator, David Martinez, is retiring his service here in Washington County, in fact, here in Oregon as well. And we want to thank you, sir, for giving us your time, your expertise, and your patience here in Washington County. We have greatly appreciated having you here on Team One Washington County and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, tonight is our last Board of Commissioner business meetings for this calendar year, but county work continues through the end of this year and into our next new year. And no matter the fact that there are school vacation holidays coming up, many different family holiday celebrations, we have some staff here both at Washington County and at Clean Water Services, who do their work 24 hours a day across the full 7 days a week, each and every day, to make sure that Washington County is a safe, habitable place for all of us to live and thrive. So while folks like me are enjoying a couple of weeks of downtime and out of formal meetings, I am grateful for the services of our staff members who work in the jail and in community corrections and courtrooms and with Clean Water Services, keeping our wastewater recovery treatment plants going, who make sure our pump stations are working just fine so that flows are flowing. And that we're protecting the health of the Tualatin River. So thank you very much, employees, for yet again another very productive year here in 2023. I know that my colleagues join me in looking forward to working with all of you on Team Washington County into our new year of 2024. And for all of you, I hope you're able to enjoy some quieter time over these next couple of weeks and enjoy some family time as well. And lastly, I will do the really boring thing of announcing our future meetings. Please do not show up here next Tuesday. We won't be here. No work session meeting, no formal board meeting, not next Tuesday, December 19th, nor Tuesday, December 26th. And guess what? Tuesday, January 2nd, we're not going to have meetings that day either. But our work for the new year starts that week after the New Year's holiday. We look forward to, once again, reconvening in work session with our staff on Tuesday, January 9th, starting bright and early at 9 a.m. in work session. On Thursday, January 11th, we're going to have a very full day as a roundtable starting at 9 a.m. at the Clean Water Services Rock Creek campus in Hillsborough. And then Tuesday, January 16th, will be our first double, where we have work sessions starting at 9, then reconvening likely around 1 p.m., and a board meeting that starts at 10. And if it's a short agenda, we'll bump that work session up. And yes, we have a couple more meetings in the month of January, but that's the slate for now. And we continue to post meeting agendas on the Washington County website, WashingtonCountyOR.gov, the best Washington County in our nation. And you can find more there. That's it from me. Any other board announcements? Anything from leadership? Nope. How about a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Let's do it together.
I don't get to say that, but you guys do.
So moved. And seconded.
Seconded. All those in favor of adjourning for this calendar year, thank you for raising your hands. Any opposed to adjourning for the remainder of the year, in addition to tonight's meeting? All right, that's it. We're adjourned. See you next year. Bye-bye.